Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video we're going to combine our audio with our rendered frames. In the last video we added some lighting to our scene and we then set all our render settings up and did our batch render of our frames. And those are the files that you see here in this folder. So these are the frames for my animation just here. And my audio is down in the sound folder that I've got here, and there it is there. So what we're going to do is import these things into After Effects. Now, I'm using After Effects for this because it's really fast and it's really easy to do in After Effects. You can, if you're more familiar, use things like Premiere, Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, Sony Vegas, whatever you've got to hand, as long as it allows you to import image frames or an image frame sequence and also audio and allow you to adjust the timing of those, then you can pretty much produce your final file in that software. But I'm going to show you the process in After Effects because it's pretty quick. So the first thing, before I import anything, it's really important to double check your frame rate for your import setting in After Effects. So on a PC we go to Edit, Preferences, and then we can go into Import just here. If you're on a Mac, what you'll need to do is go to there's a menu in the very sort of next to File, just to the left of where it says File, there'll be a menu called After Effects. If you click on that, there's an option in there for your preferences, and then you go to Import. Okay, it'll look basically the same as this, except it'll be in an After Effects menu just up here. Okay, so I'm going to go Preferences, Import. Now, what we need to do is make sure that our frames per second just here is set to the same value that we used in Maya for our animation. Now in Maya, I use 24 frames a second, so I need to change this to 24. Okay, so I'm going to go 2.4. like that. If they don't match, your footage when it imports into here will be whatever this number is for its frame rate. If your frame rate in here doesn't match what you used in Maya, the timing of your animation will not be the same when you play it back in here, and that means the audio won't sync up properly with it. So you have to make sure this is set first. So I'm going to hit OK. All right. Now, sometimes with some of the settings in your preferences, you need to restart your software before it actually locks in. Okay. I'm going to test this now just so you can see what's going on. So I'm going to start off first of all by dragging my audio in. So I've got my audio file here. I'm just going to drag that into the project bin like that. Now, it's not really going to affect the audio. What I do need to do now is also import in my images, okay, this image sequence. This is where it's going to show up as whether or not the frame rate's correct. And that's going to tell us whether or not we need to restart the software. So I'm going to go File, Import, File. This version of the software, normally what would happen is it would actually go straight to the sound folder where I've dragged this in. This version doesn't do that seemingly, so it means I've got to navigate through the long way. So I'm just going to navigate into my images folder here. So what I need to do is grab my first frame, make sure JPEG sequence is selected, and make sure it's importing as footage. And I'm going to hit Import. Okay. Now you can see here, it's brought in my sequence and it's got frame 0 to frame 35. The important thing to note is up here, it's telling me what the frame rate is of this clip. And the frame rate's coming up as 24 frames per second. That's exactly what it was in Maya. Okay, so that means the change that I made over here in my preferences, let me just go back to that. So if I go back to Import, where I changed this to 24, it's actually set that properly. So it looks as though with this version of the software, I don't need to restart the software to get this number to actually take effect. I'm going to test that again just so you guys can see it. So as long as when you've brought your sequence in, that number is the same as what you had in Maya, which is 24 frames a second, it's fine. I'm going to do something a bit drastic here and change this to 30, and I'm going to re-import the footage to show you guys the difference. So if I just go back, File, Import File, and just grab the same thing, I'm doing the exact same thing as I did before, and if I import that, notice how this frame sequence is 30 frames per second. Okay, so you need to be aware of that number. Okay, that preferences number. If it's not set correctly, your animation will not sync to your audio. All right, so I'm going to delete the dodgy test one, and I'm going to use my 24 frames per second footage. So now what I want to do is create a composition of this. So I'm just going to drag this onto the composition button. And what that's going to do is create a composition that has the duration. So in my case, it's 35 frames, but also the image size, which is HD 720 or 1280 by 720 pixels. Okay. So really all I need to do now is drag my audio down and then make sure the audio starts on the correct frame. So I'm going to drag this down into here. All right, now for me, my audio started at frame 0. So it's as simple as just doing that. That should now match up and kind of sync together. Okay. Now for those of you who have moved your footage or offset your footage in Maya so it starts on a different frame, in the last video I told you to have a look at that offset number and remember or take note of what it is. At this point, that's what you need to now do. You need to actually move this so that it starts at that particular frame. Now, a quick way of setting that is to, within this title bar here, you need to access this in button, or this in column, I should say. So anywhere along in here, you just right click, go to columns, and then make sure you've got in switched on. Okay, and what you do is click here in the column and then type in the number from Maya. So for example, if you offset your audio by 24 frames, just make sure that this is in frames and you just type in 24 and then OK, and it'll move your audio to frame 24. So that way it should then sync up directly with your visuals. And it's as simple as that. If this is not in frames up here, so this currently is in frames, the SMPTE timecode is at the bottom, you can see the instruction that says control click for alternate display. So if you hit control or command and click, it'll change it from SMPTE timecode, which is hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, just to straight out frames like this. And this is what I would use because this is what Maya uses for its timeline. Okay, so once you're happy with the position of your audio, pretty much we are good to go. So mine is set to 0. If you want, you can make sure you've got your audio active here. So if you click that, it mutes it. So if I do a preview,
Hi there.
You should now see your audio sync up.
Hi there.
And you can hear the audio.
Hi there. Hi there. Hi there. Hi there.
Like that. So once it's kind of synced up, basically you can now export this video. Now you can manually go in and kind of adjust the position of the audio like that and then play it back. Once it looks as though it's synced up, you should be good. So let's export this. All we do is go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, and that's going to pop the render queue open down here. We can go Lossless, just here, and then you can select your file type. For me, I'm going to go QuickTime, and under Format Options, I'm going to select an MPEG-4 video from this drop down here. So if you click on Format Options, just come up to here, Video Codec. Yeah, we can just go MPEG-4 video for this. Technically, H.264 is almost the exact same thing as well. It's a form of MPEG-4 video, so you could also use H.264 if you like, but MPEG-4 will work fine. Okay, so everything else you just leave as it is. Make sure quality's at 100, and then just hit OK. And in older versions of the software, there used to be, where it's got this video output tick box, there used to be an audio one down here as well, which wasn't ticked by default. So you always had to tick audio so that it would export. If you're using Adobe CC like I am, then that shouldn't be the case. You can just basically hit OK and you should be good. So let's hit that. Then all we do is go to the output to section, click on the file name just here, navigate through to your folder. So I'm going to jump across to my lip-sync folder. Some versions of Maya will actually have a movies folder in here. You could put it in there. For me, I'm just going to put it into the images folder with the other renders. I'm just going to give this a name. So for me, so I know what it is, I'm just going to, it's only a 2-word lip sync, so I'm just going to put that in. What you guys probably should do is just put in your name and then lip sync. Just name it lip sync, maybe a version number, something like that. And then all we do is hit save and press the render button. And that'll only take a couple of seconds to render. And if we jump back over to the images folder, we should find it just here. So if I open this up in, I'm going to open it with VLC. Let's see.
Hi there. Hi there.
There we go.
Hi there. Hi there. Hi there.
There we go. That's basically the process. So this would be one of the files that you would submit. Just here, I wouldn't need any of the frames submitted, just to save on my storage and stuff. But that's basically how you get your file combined with both the rendered frames and also the audio. So that's the end of the lip sync. So hopefully you've learned a bit out of that, and hopefully you've come up with some nice fun little animations. We'll leave this one here, and I will see you for the next project.